And we are live, ladies and gentlemen. We are live. Welcome to the Reasonably Fine Art Talk. This is your friend Charlie Hunter in Bellows Falls, Vermont. And joining us at the spur of the moment in the joie de vivre that we know him for, our good friend Mr. Scott W. Pryor, not that other Pryor. Note that he says Scott W. Pryor. Scott, it's a joy to have you with us. How are you today?
I'm awesome. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's an honor. It's an honor. Whoa, nice. HS says nice T-shirt, Scott.
Hey, I was going to ask what the protocol was, so here we are.
That's correct. If you weren't wearing it, we'd give you a hard time. I was thinking,
sure I'm not too fuzzy up here. I'm looking all right.
You're looking great. You're looking great. I should have worn my Scott Pryor T-shirt.
Oh, dang it.
Oh, well. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, Scott Pryor is a renowned California plein air / impressionist. He's easy to scare away, apparently.
Just trying to get right.
Scott, tell us about what your journey has been. How did you come into doing what you do?
Well, Charlie, through many, I had many majors when I went to college, and I'll try to keep it short, but I was kicked out of San Diego State, of all places to get kicked out of.
How'd you manage that? What'd you do?
I had too much fun and my grades sucked.
Ah, okay.
You know, I was 21.
Right.
San Diego State.
Yeah.
But while I was at San Diego State, I had to, back then you had to keep insurance with your parents. You had to be a full-time student. So to fulfill that, I took a ceramics class, and then, which was like, oh, and the teacher's like, hey, you know how to draw? And I'm like, he's looking at because we had to have a sketchbook. So I'm drawing my ideas out. And then I left there and took some time off, and my mom's like, go back to school and study art. You love doing it. So that's what happened. And then I went back to junior college by my mom and dad's house, Orange Coast College. Took a bunch of art classes there, and then transferred to the Academy of Art in San Francisco. Studied illustration and painting there, and graduated there in '97, and haven't looked back. I majored in illustration and minored in painting. So my idea was to get a job,
right,
painting backgrounds or doing production illustration in a ad agency or whatever. And then, as you know, the world changed because of computers.
Right.
And so I ended up not pursuing illustration because I couldn't get any work. So I just painted and waited tables after I graduated, and was teaching a little bit at this place called the Palos Verdes Art Center. And then while I was there teaching, some students were like, hey, have you ever heard of the California Art Club? And so I said no. And because I worked I also was their preparator. So I would hang the shows and whatnot. And I was in a closet, and I came across all these catalogs for the CAC and the gold medal, and was like, oh, this is who they are. And then, I met some people, went to a show, met some people. They said I should submit. So I submitted, and then I haven't looked back. I got in as an artist member my first try, which pisses people off, but what can you do?
What can you do? You just have that innate talent.
So
you've been supporting yourself as a full-time artist since when?
Since my wife told me to stop waiting tables because I was selling enough paintings. That was probably 2001 or 2. Right around there. Yeah.
Cool.
So,
well, let's do a tour through the slideshow that you provided.
And these are all kind of recent paintings. There's one in there that's a little older, but
yeah. But
So
yeah, one of the things, it's interesting to find out that you had the training as an illustrator, because your work sort of reminds me of Bert Silverman and that or Darren Baker, that very, very, you look at a Scott W. Pryor painting, and you know that you're looking at someone who knows what they are doing and what they are trying to say. It's a very assured painting style.
thank you.
And you know, I look at this and I love the balance of solidity and lightness, because it's the way you have the light with the heaviness of all the shadow. So much of the action is in shadow. Then with the transcendent bit of light at the top of the building. And then in that heavy shadow area, you've got the man on the bicycle, which is another element of lightness, you know? And I think it just has a beautiful balance to it. Talk a little about how you came about doing this painting and what you were trying to accomplish with it.
Well, so we were in the city.
And when you said the city, is that San Francisco?
San Francisco, yeah, we were in San Francisco. I visit up there often. I live down in San Diego area, Oceanside, but I go back to the Bay Area often. My daughter lives in Oakland. My wife's aunt's in Marin, and then we have friends all over the area. So we go visit, and the winter time is my favorite time of year for light there. So we were there with the girls, and we were walking around the Mission District, and I had my phone with me, and I was like, "Oh my God, look at the light over here!" You know. So I was running around this part of the neighborhood, and when I walked up to this part, this guy showed up on his bike, and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, perfect!" So I actually backed up and took a bunch of shots of him, so that, you know, if I could work it together, it would he would be in the painting. And it worked out great, because he's like not the focal point, but he's in the foreground, so you have to look through. You know?
Right. Right. Yeah. Because and those circular the circles of the tires break up the lattice work of the crosswalk beautifully.
Yep. Yeah. So it's like the design and stuff. So it just came together really easy. Although I did have an issue with that white building. We'll just say it grew a little bit.
How so? How so?
I just drew it wrong, and then I figured it out because the windows. I was like, oh, wait. So when you fix one part, you got to go through the whole thing.
Right.
So
Well, you got away with it. You got away with it quite well. That building looks just fine to me. So
thank you. Yeah, it's a fun painting.
Yeah, it definitely is. And ladies and gentlemen, look at how he leads us in with that yellow, the yellow square right in the center, bottom center. That
or whatever that is,
Yeah, and then the lattice work of the crosswalk, and then the repeating yellow square, and it's a terrific device. And now, and the color. Talk a little about how you do your color harmonies, because everything in here feels very, very harmonic, even though you have things like this kind of turquoise Prius over there on the left.
What I try to keep my palette limited, right? And so whatever light's going on in the painting is going to be on the buildings. It's in the sky. It's same kind of thing with the shadows and stuff like that. Like there's a lot of dark grays going on in here because of the asphalt and stuff. So some of that is in the Prius. So you get the overlap.
So it's really kind of the illusion of turquoise. It's probably a lot closer to various grays, but because it is in keeping with the rest of the light, it reads as having that definite turquoise. But yeah, the fact that that yellow is both in the shadow, is in the infrastructure, shadow, foreground, and in the sky, that really helps tie it together. And in his jacket, because the eye leaps if you're doing a color You know, if you're reading it with the eye going through color, it goes from that dark, from the yellow square in the lower foreground to his jacket to the other side of the street.
Yeah, it's in the envelope. It's in the envelope that he's carrying too.
Yep, and the envelope and the reflection on the bus over there on the right.
Yep.
Yep, very smart painting there.
For a big part for me to do this painting was like all the reflections and the reflective light on the right side by the bus. That was another factor that I was like, "Ooh, this looks awesome." So
Right.
I got to emulate. How am I going to do that? So
yeah, because it really is. It's so clever because it does. You think the eye is going to just go straight, but then the eye bounces over to the right and bounces off the bus, off the reflection on the bus, and then back into the far center. Good stuff. Good stuff.
Thank you.
Now this very, very different. I mean, you love vehicles, right?
I do.
Yeah.
I tried to buy that one.
We're just big kids, is all. You know.
Oh,
we can't make models anymore, but we can paint cars that we love. Now my wife is totally different on this. So talk about this.
Oh, the lighting on this is full, like 10:30 in the morning, Sonoma, September. So it's hot, bright.
Right.
And to get that, I don't know. Really tried to push that patinas. It's hard to describe because.
But even
it's in the sky, like the sky color is in all of the blues, So it's like so trying to correlate with the harmony part that we were just talking about. It was a tough one to do because it was like, okay. So
yeah, it's a lot flatter. It reads a lot flatter. It reads a lot more stylized than the previous one. I'm going to bounce back just for a second. That is so atmospheric in an almost, you can dive into that.
Yeah.
And this one is much flatter and more pictorial, It's really interesting to see that difference because we're going to bounce back and forth on that a bunch in the ones that we're looking at. And so, I mean, this reminds me more of Jim McVicker's sort of work,
Oh, yeah. Thanks.
It was a fantastic painter, but
it was so like doing this one because all those cars run, and so it was hard. It was hard because he was moving some around. So I had to get myself positioned. And I asked him too, because I was turned on to this place by a friend. It's her brother. He's been there for 30 whatever years or whatever, 40 years.
Right.
And so I asked him, will you leave that one there and that one there at least? Like, he's like, I don't need to work on those. So how long are you going to be here? And I was like, it's a bigger painting. So it would be 2-3 days. He's like, okay, Thursday by the latest, I have to have that done. Okay, I'll be done. So just try to leave the blue one and the white one alone. He's like, no problem. So, because then things in the background moved around.
So this is a plein air, a multi-day plein air piece.
Yes, sir.
Huh. Okay. Oh, we need to discuss that then, because the first one is a studio piece.
Oh yeah.
And this is true plein air. Okay.
True plein air.
Do you often do multi-day plein airs?
When I do the competitions, I don't really do them. So I'll do like a 2-day here at home.
Right.
I'm out, if I have the time. But for the most part, when I'm doing the bigger ones, I'm mostly doing those in the competitions and shows. So
okay.
I'll spend. This was 3 days.
Right.
The last day was basically just like touching up and making things pop and.
Right.
So
this one, then I'm also guessing this one also is a plein air piece.
Yes, this is a plein air piece painted during the Maui Invitational. We were doing the sunset quote unquote paint out. And everybody was painting the beach. and I turned around and saw the light hitting the surfboards at Timmy's rental shop. I was like, I'm going to paint this instead. So, you know, it was just a fun one.
And this would have been done in just one pass, though, because
that's one. Yes.
Yeah. So I'm guessing this is another studio piece then.
Yes, sir.
Interesting. So right now we're getting a. I'm seeing a real difference in kind of the approach. That these are much more kind of jewel-like, the way you are working with the color. It's much more about kind of well, they're both about atmosphere, but it's a very different sort of atmosphere. I mean, and this reminds me of if like Gustav Klimt was doing streetscapes, because of those red lanterns or whatever over on the left.
Yeah.
Tell us about this one.
I got a new camera at this time, and I was in the city doing a photo shoot for a portrait with one of those rock star type people that I've met. And it was one of, rainy day in winter. And so I just ran around the city because I was like, I kept seeing all these people that I went to school with, or other people that never lived in the city, but apparently visit the city a lot, San Francisco, doing these kind of reflective scenes. I'm like, all right, fuck, I'll do one too. So I just went and played with my camera and shot a bunch of shots. This is from like 3 different photos. So,
is it really? Now, and how do you meld them together? Do you literally meld them together, or you just use elements from the different photos?
I'm using elements. I'm doing sketches and drawings in my sketchbook first to see where I wanted the guy on the bike versus the trolley car, because there was some where they were all further back, and so, but I wanted them in the foreground, so I moved them around. And
so did you do a composite image in Photoshop, or did you work from the individual photographs and a composite drawing that you had done in your sketchbook?
I worked just from drawings.
Good for you.
No Photoshop. I'm not computer literate, really, when it comes to Photoshop and stuff. It's all, I tried, but my wife was just giving me crap. She's always, you bought Photoshop? Oh, yep, I did once. And I never really used it.
Right. Well, it's funny. I mean, someone like Doug Fryer uses it constantly. He will create his image in Photoshop and then work from that for a studio piece. And I've tried doing that, and it for some reason, for me, it feels somehow false. Whereas the process you're talking about of, here I've got a photo of this guy on the bike, here I've got a photo of the streetcar, here I've got a photo of the landscape, and I'm going to combine them in a drawing and work from that. For some reason, that computes much better in my brain.
It's easier for me too. I have a lot of friends that, like yourself, that excuse me, that work with Photoshop, and it's like, I'm one of the instructors that I worked with at the Academy of Art, Adam Caldwell. He uses it a lot for his montage paintings that he makes. So it's just sweet as
Yes, exactly. Now, again, the design in this, I think, is wonderful. And in a way, you're using that same device of a bottom of the painting central element to push us into the painting, to push the viewer in. I mean, that is literally an arrow.
Literally. And it's in the middle, which is funny. I'm like, that's kind of, never mind. So, I moved it a little bit just so it wasn't straight in the middle, but whatever. It works.
It works. It works. I also really like the typography on the street, the bus lane and the North I-10 or whatever. Because I mean, those are almost that's reminiscent of the Demuth. I saw the number 5 in gold.
Yeah.
It seems both very playful and it's realistic. It's. your work has a wonderful playfulness while still conveying a lot of atmosphere, I think.
And again, like the guy Nike's on Valencia painted, this one just came right together. It happened really fast.
Really?
Yeah, like, yeah, it was, I don't know, I probably, it's a 28 by 32, so it's, I don't know, it probably took me just a couple of weeks, versus the Nike's on Valencia took me a lot longer because of that snafu with the building. But I didn't have any issues with this one. The drawing, everything came together really quick. It was fun.
Good painting. Now this look, I'm going to guess here, 18 by 24. I'm going to say it started as a plein air and then it moved to the studio.
You're wrong.
What was it? Tell us about it.
It's all studio.
All studio, okay.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when you paint outside a lot, that's the thing, right? Is like, who was it? Alexi Steele. We were hanging out talking, and somebody who was studying with him and other people was asking us questions at this event we were at, and he's like, the way he made it beautiful, like he stated it beautifully. He's like, with his Russian accent, who knows if that's real or fake. But he was like, it's all about bringing the indoors outdoors and the outdoors indoors, so you go outside, you learn light and stuff, you learn, structure and stuff inside. So when you paint outside enough and you're in the elements, you can pull it off inside like it was outside. That's the point. That's the whole thing. I want you, and a big thing for me is I want you to feel like you're there with me.
Right.
So you're walking up onto this just like I did.
So the richness of the shadows in this are just wonderful. That purpley, I mean, it's you can almost taste it. That the purple blues in there.
Yeah.
Really, really lovely.
Thank you.
And you are doing big shapes, but they still have little bits of filigree. The pipe on the side of the, I guess it's the sign and the utility pole.
Yep.
And the roof rack on the RV, the cast shadow of those makes it. That's lovely.
It's the little things, like if you can just indicate some little things, it goes so far.
So far, yeah. Boy, I get the feel. I mean, the way you render the ocean, just so suffused with that late in the day light.
Yeah.
It's. I believe it.
Yeah. Thank you.
Now, this one, am I correct in that this is actually kind of a political statement? That there are both
there's multiple. It's turned into that, as well as a jab at people who got people on horses in landscapes, calling it Western.
Right.
So I came up like kind of before COVID hit and all that. I was just screwing around. And I came up with a mule. I don't have that sketchbook where I'd show you, where I just came up like, what would I do? What can I do to make fun of people who put people on horses in their landscapes? Because if you do a good enough landscape, you don't need to put a guy on a horsey or whatever, or female on a horsey or whatever. You don't need to have cows. It's a good landscape, So I was just poking.
What if you like cows or people on horses as much as
I do. I do. But you know what I mean? Where you get like people are doing the painting, you're like, oh, there's that little tiny guy in back there. So this was me screwing around, playing with it. And then when I painted it, so that is me on the mule in the front, then the pack mule in the back, that has all the stuff that I would use. I have with me. I have a skateboard on it. I have a fishing pole. I have a surfboard, all my camping gear, just shit I would bring with me to go on if I was traveling around, just for fun. And then it also, like, once I named it, because this is Midtown And I'm on Midtown Mules. I'm like, holy shit, that's like for all these people that are in this too. It's a corporate world.
Right.
Two dudes with their coffees on lunch break or whatever.
Right.
It's silly, but it was fun, dude. It was really fun.
That's funny. That's so.
It's available.
But yeah, it's available, and soon there's going to be a painting in this slideshow of one of our best known people on guys who paint people on horses, right?
You hold on. We'll talk about that.
We'll talk about that. Yeah.
It's not who you think.
Oh, it isn't. Okay.
Nope.
All right. Well, let's talk about this painting.
Let's go.
Go for it.
Okay, so this is Refugio State Beach, north of Santa Barbara.
Okay.
We love camping here. Great camp spot. It is called Smuggler's Paradise because back in the day, pirates used to use the cove to trade, because there was, back in the 1800s, there was, I forget the name of the family that was there, but that goes back. They were trading with the native tribes and with the Mexican family that owned the property, quote unquote, owned the land, because it was at one point Mexico, as we know. So it's a cute spot, and I just caught the light one day with my camera, and was like, I'm going to paint this someday, and then I did. It's fun. That light is great. I love that.
Yeah, the light in the sky and the quality of light in the clouds. I mean, it's very. This is from atmospherics like this is where license plate art comes from. It feels like you're sort of playing with the very, very graphic elements by splitting it right in the center. You've got the horizon line is literally this, or I guess it's a hair lower than the center, but
a little lower. But yeah, you're pretty close.
I mean, you're a lot of your work is kind of it has a commentary element to it. It feels to me that you're kind of talking about how the piece fits into kind of larger society. Now this feels to me like out around, or at least what I've experienced out around Monterey, that kind of gray, windy.
Yes.
Where is this?
Actually, this is right north of the other painting. So
really?
This is Santa Barbara Coast. So it's like,
wow. Okay.
Hollister. It's a private ranch, and I got invited to go paint and run around for a couple days. So this is one of the surf spots that people go to there. So I just pulled up, and there they were.
So again, is this fully plein air, or was it part plein air, part studio?
This is all studio.
All studio. Okay.
Yeah, I had a show that I did up in Santa Barbara, so I'm like, I should do some Santa Barbara paintings.
Right.
I really wanted to stay and paint, but I think I was actually going home this day, so it was it's like just take pictures and get out.
Right, but I mean, you really are a master of the what the atmosphere feels like. I'm looking in the upper right hand corner of the trees, and then the shadow in the trees, and because there's such heavy overcast on this day, there's really not a lot of light in those shadows. They've got a heaviness to it, but there is enough moisture in the air that it's not black. It's grayed out, and you're a master of that, I think.
Thank you. Yeah.
Good
yeah.
stuff.
I think part of that is because you have to bring in some of that light, even though it's not there, into the shadow.
Right.
And then the harmony, so like the same colors are in the tires, but that is slightly lighter, a little more of the eucalyptusy green in it. So.
Right. Yeah. No. Isn't the underside, the left, the most furthest to the left tire, the shadow area of that, isn't that pretty much your darkest dark?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's see. Susan especially likes the tracks in the sand from the tires. That's another device you're using to bring the viewer in.
Yeah, those are that one. That's like part of the fun stuff, you know. I save those till the end, kind of, sort of, because it's like it goes by so fast because it's just suggestions,
Right.
yeah. But it sells the painting, that's for sure.
Well, that's like Don. Don Demers, right?
Yeah, Don's a good buddy.
Wonderful, wonderful human being, wonderful painter, and he loves talking. He's one of the funniest, one of the driest, funniest people I know. And he always says about paintings. He says, "Well, if I do my seascape, and if it doesn't sell, I'm not. I take it back from the gallery and I put in the seagulls. And if it still doesn't sell, and then I put in the sailboat." So even if it still doesn't sell, I do it. I go ahead and put in the red buoy. So now we know to put in tire tracks. So,
tire tracks help.
All right. Let's see. Wedler asks, talk a little about the balance of plein air and studio in your artwork. Well, I feel like you are. You're sort of saying the plein air informs. Without doing the plein air, you wouldn't know how to bring the outside inside.
Yes, exactly. And it's a tool for us. It's so it's plein air isn't all that we do, right? We're artists that paint plein air sometimes. I paint less, but it's all in my head from all the years of doing it,
Right.
So it's memory. It's like muscle memory.
Right. Right.
And if you're a younger artist, being you're just starting out or whatever, get out there, paint from life as much as possible. Direct painting is the key to seeing and then retaining it, so that when you do go back in the studio and later on, it's almost, I don't want to say effortless, but you have the knowledge of what it's like.
You put in the hours. I mean, I went out because have you been to Easton before?
Yes. You want to talk about Easton a little bit?
No, not yet.
Okay.
I'm gonna blather for a second. I went out last couple of days ago to get ready to because I haven't been painting outdoors at all this year, and I was feeling nervous about it, and did two very good paintings. And it's like, my gosh, really putting in all those years of painting outside, you get good at it after a while, and it really, you got to do it and do it and do it and do lots and lots and lots of terrible paintings. I just did a spring sale and I put more of my old paintings in there. My wife's like, really? You're putting that one in there? I'm all, let's see what happens. Because I was just figuring shit out, Yeah. And now, Mel asks, is the drawing all freehand?
Yes, always.
You'll never project.
I never project. I didn't include the mosh pit painting, but I did project that, and that was so damn big that I had to, But then I had to go back in and correct stuff. So I find myself whenever I project something, or in the past when I projected something, I was always fixing it, So it's just like fixing the drawing because it's not true, if you know what I mean.
Right.
So.
Yeah, it's a false promise, projecting, unless you're working at a huge scale where you have to project.
Yeah, unless you're working on a giant mural, or a very large painting, but even like.
Oh, I'm working on a 4 foot by 8 foot commission, and so I projected my study, and it keeps me awake at night. The set of issues that come up because of that. So
they do that.
Oh, this is a great one. This is a great one. This is like a textbook lesson of things you're not supposed to do in a painting. It works so well. Talk to us about how this happened.
So there's okay. I was actually up north, obviously. I was in the Bay Area.
Yeah, we can guess that.
You guessed that? Good job. And I was moving my daughter back to Berkeley because it was like COVID and all that stuff. So I had visited Randy Sexton, R.I.P. at his studio, and was talking to him about because he had a painting that he did that's on the west side of the bridge looking north, and somebody else had done something like that during the Sonoma one. I'm like, where the heck is that at? And he's like, where that is, like at where the booth is, where the toll booth is. That's where you take that right there. I'm like, oh, okay. So I was just running around the Bay Area. The first day, the day before, we were down below watching the people surf. That's like a famous spot. You see the building that's right there in the middle on the right? That's a famous surf spot. So my daughter and I were down there watching because there were waves, but it was socked in fog, dripping, super miserable kind of a day compared to this. And then the next day it was super clear out. So I was out running around shooting shots of the bay and stuff. And I just walked under the bridge, was like, this is the view. Because I've never seen anybody do a painting of this. I've seen all kinds of different angles of the bridge. So I took a bunch of photos underneath and figured out, okay, this is the one. And, here we are. It's kind of got a funny story. So it was supposed to be in the gold medal show a couple of years ago. And then I had entered it, but I never heard from them. I was waiting to hear the confirmation of it. And a collector who watched it being painted on through social media, and they lived down here. And he was like, hey, I want to see that painting. I'm like, okay. So I'm thinking about buying it. And so I'm like, all right. So he showed up, and he's like, I want to buy it. Well, full price? He's like, yep. Because I'm like, it's going into the show, and he's like, maybe they can borrow it. So I sold it because I needed the money, and put all that money in the bank. And then was like, I called the club, talked to the club, and told them what happened. And then they denied me from like being able to use it because they wanted the commission. And I was like, no, I'm not giving you the commission because I need the money, more than you do. So, and so I wasn't in the show that year. I'm like, can I replace it with something? Like the politics of the art world is hilarious. So then I took it to the collector's house, and they loved it. Fast forward to the Nikes on Valencia painting. He saw that being done too, and he was like, hey, that was in the gold medal, it's over now, what would you be interested in doing a trade up? And I'm like, if the price is right. And he's like, okay, here's what I'm thinking about. That works for me. So we swapped the paintings out, and now this will be in the gold medal this year.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. So it'll be at the museum in August, I think. Yeah. So yeah,
it all worked out perfectly.
Worked out great. One thing I learned. Sorry, I'm reading the.
I'm going to read it out loud. You finish.
Okay, no, oh, Jesus, it's Peter. Anyways,
I'll get away for a moment. Okay, you go ahead. You finish your thought.
So this will be at the Hilbert Museum. The collector's happy. I'm happy. The club's happy because this painting's in the show. So I just need to come up with a nice frame for it because that's next.
All right. Now Peter asks, how much do you draw for its own sake, just not in the service of the painting?
Ooh, good question, Peter. minimal. I more draw my head nowadays. That makes sense.
Well, my experience when I was a music manager, when I started managing people whose careers were just starting, there was nothing they wanted to do more than sit around and noodle on the guitar and work on songs. And then as they got more and more successful, and it became a necessity for them to sit and noodle around on the guitar and write songs, the doing it just for the joyful sake of doing it, that did lessen. I mean, they're having a wonderful, fulfilling life doing music, but there is a trade-off. We do less, at least in my experience, it feels like we do less playing the more professional we get,
So true. Yeah.
And it's inevitable. I mean, I don't think it's a tragedy. I think it's a reality. When you do something for a living, it changes how one relates to it.
Yeah, and like I love drawing. Don't get me wrong. Like I still love it. Like I miss the days of having the model time and stuff like that. And when I do go back and sit in on a session or something, it's just like riding a bike. You gotta get it going and get the rust out, and it's like, oh yeah, that's how you hold the charcoal. That's how you spin it. That's how you
right.
Don't over sharpen it or it'll break. Like
That's funny though. You mentioned figure drawing, because to me that is still a very pure pursuit. That's something I do only for my own practice. I don't show drawings with figures generally.
I don't know.
I think that's a good way to kind of to keep that pure and holy.
Yeah, totally.
That's the way I feel about writing. People say, "Oh, you're a really good writer. Why don't you write a book?" Well, no, because I enjoy writing. I don't want to put any pressure on it.
Exactly.
All right, my friend, tell us about this one. And it's not who we think it is?
It's not Jim Wodark, no.
I am amazed. I was sure that was Jim Wodark.
Nope, it's Jeremy Lipking.
I don't know what he looks like from the back, so
he's a Southern California cowboy is what he calls himself, I guess, today.
All right. Well, talk to us about this.
So this painting, he posted something online about it, like, oh, that would make a great painting. And then I was like, no, I'm not going to do that. So, whatever. That's silly. And then he posts, somebody's like, somebody needs to make a painting out of this. And so I did a screenshot, and I was just looking at it. I'm like checking out the photo because he's all scattered. I mean, when you show up, when we're out there looking for something to paint, you show up and you're like, this is fleeting light. This is minutes. That the Vermilion Cliffs are about to be in all shadow in 5 minutes or whatever. When you show up, you're like, fuck, I got to get going, and you open your bag, here's shit going. That's what he did. I mean, he's got his box to the left, his towels to the right, and then he's set up, he's going, and then he's got the death grip on the brushes. I was like, okay, this is like, so this is really for me to figure out to see if it'll be a good painting, and I'm going to go bigger just because it needs to be bigger. And then I basically, it became like a painting for us who go out there and chase the light and do this. I was like, okay, it's not about him anymore. It's about all of us. So.
Right. It does. It's really heroic, it's a wonderful piece.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so what's in the future for Scott W. Pryor? What do you got going on, Scott?
Let's see. Well, in July, we have the lovely Sweat Out at Plein Easton.
Right.
Then I have in August the Gold Medal Show. That's about it.
You got that done.
Yep, it's done. Plein Easton, and I don't know.
Are you doing a bunch of workshops or?
I have a workshop supposedly coming. in Scottsdale in January. Which
Okay.
we just ironed all that out a couple weeks ago.
All right. And
Excited
so,
about that.
but people wanting to learn more about the phenomenon that is Scott W. Pryor just merely need to go to scottwpryor.com. Is that correct?
Pretty much. Or
All
socials,
right.
you know. It's all the
All right.
same.
And when did you do Easton before?
So I did it the first few years.
Really?
Yeah. So not trying to brag or whatever. Back
Go
in the
ahead.
day. Well, you know, whatever. It's not.
Paint yourself into a corner. Go ahead.
Look. I'm ready. I'm ready for Easton.
All right. We use that for wiping the sweat off our brows there.
Not well. So Nancy, most people don't even realize that Nancy Tankersley headed up that show.
Right.
Right. And so when her and her husband bought a little South Street art gallery, and they represented me we had met in a show in Texas and hit it off, and we did the only 2 bar scenes or whatever. It was silly. And then she was in Carmel, and she's like, hey, you know, what do you think about, would you come back? And I was like, what do I think about doing a show back there? And I think it's a great idea. And she's like, well, let's do a show for you at our gallery, and then we could talk about it. So I went back for the show, and we had several conversations with local artists and people and dinners and stuff, and talking about the idea of doing plein air Easton. And I was like, it's a great idea. You have a museum. As long as you do it at the museum, you'll get bigger names in it. Don't, you know, like definitely get involved with the museum. And that's what they did. She did. And you know, like look at it now, it's the 20th year coming up.
Yeah.
So I've never gotten any credit for it. And she's like, I'm going to put you in my memoir book when I write it so that you do get some credit for it. So I'm like, but I don't need the credit. I don't care. It's good.
I will name a painting this year, Scott W. Pryor's Dream. I'll do that.
It's a great show, and I'm looking forward to hanging out with all you guys because we haven't seen each other in ages. So.
Right, and it's one of the great hangs. It's terrific. All right, Scott. Well, thank you for joining us today. It's been a lovely experience to look at your paintings and discuss them with you. I can't wait to see you next month.
Yeah, well, I'm looking forward to it. It's gonna be great.
Thank you
for having me. Okay.
All right, everybody else out there, you take good care. You take good care. We'll be back next week with another reasonably fine art talk. Bye-bye.
Woo!